How much money are we spending taking care of your mother? A nursing home would take care of her for just $250. I happened to overhear my daughter-in-law say this, the same woman who had been taking my pension for the past 3 years. But what my son replied shook me to my very core. They say we become wiser with age. Perhaps that's true, but no one warns you that with wisdom often comes bitter disappointment in those you once considered close. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought that at this age I'd have to fight for my dignity in my own home. Well, in my son David and his wife Rebecca's home, to be precise. My life changed 3 years ago when I had a stroke. Not all at once, but gradually, like raindrops that seem harmless at first, but then turn into a downpour. The stroke left the right side of my body weakened. I can walk, but slowly, with a cane. I can speak, though sometimes it takes a moment for my thoughts to become words. But my mind remains clear, despite the doctor's fears. That's both a blessing and a curse. To understand everything, but not always be able to act. After my husband Robert died, I lived alone for nearly 10 years. I had my own little house, my pension, my routines, my independence, which I valued more than anything. When the stroke happened, David insisted I move in with them. "Mom, you need help, and Rebecca and I can take care of you," he said. His voice sounded so sincere, so warm. I agreed because I was scared to be alone, scared of falling and not being able to get up, scared of dying alone and no one even noticing I was gone. Back then, I didn't yet know that Rebecca had already made plans for my pension. The first year wasn't too bad. Yes, I had to adjust to living in someone else's house, to different rules, to needing approval for everything I did. I tried not to be a burden. When Rebecca offered to help with my finances, I was actually relieved. My right hand wasn't reliable, and signing checks or filling out forms had become a challenge. "Let me handle your pension and cover all your expenses, Martha," she said with a smile. "You won't have to worry about bills or payments." David supported the idea. He always worked late and left everything related to the house in Rebecca's hands. "This will be easier, Mom," he said. "Rebecca will take care of everything." And take care she did. My $1,200 monthly pension started going into their joint account. Rebecca gave me pocket money, $50 a week, for small expenses. When I timidly asked where the rest was going, she patiently explained. "Martha, you have no idea how much your medications cost, and the special food, the adult diapers, the shower chair we bought just for you." I didn't wear diapers and could shower by myself while sitting on a regular chair, but arguing with Rebecca was pointless. She always found a way to make me feel ungrateful. "We do so much for you, Martha," she would say with a light sigh. "David works overtime so we can afford to care for you." And I would fall silent, feeling guilty just for being alive and causing trouble. The second year was worse. Rebecca stopped coming into my room as often. She used to bring me tea and ask how I was feeling. Now she would just toss a curt, "Breakfast is on the table," over her shoulder and disappear into her own business. David was barely home. He had been promoted and was traveling for work more often. When he was home, Rebecca would put on her mask of the caring wife and daughter-in-law. But the moment he left, that mask vanished. My pocket money was cut down to $30 a week. "Inflation, Martha," Rebecca explained. "Everything's getting more expensive, including your medication." My medication was covered by insurance, but I stayed silent again. I began calling my old friend Eleanor more often. We met back in college and had kept in touch all these years. She worked at a senior center and understood my situation better than anyone. "Martha, I don't like this," she said. "It sounds like your daughter-in-law is taking advantage of the situation. You need to talk to David." But I was afraid. Afraid to cause problems between my son and his wife. Afraid he wouldn't believe me. And most of all, afraid of ending up in a nursing home. Rebecca had already mentioned more than once that there are wonderful facilities where professionals will take good care of you. By the third year, I had almost come to terms with my situation. My room became my sanctuary. I only came out for lunch and dinner, if David was home. The rest of the time, I tried to avoid Rebecca. I read a lot. Books remained my source of comfort, and I kept exercising both my body and my mind, following the rehabilitation routine the doctor had given me after the stroke. Every morning, I would say aloud, "Today is Tuesday, May 15th. My name is Martha Clark. I am 72 years old." It helped me stay mentally sharp and train my memory. Sometimes I'd get confused about the date, so I'd recite all the days of the week until I found the right one. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No, today is Thursday, the 17th, not Wednesday. I also did speech exercises, practicing tongue twisters and long sentences. After the stroke, my speech had become slower, and I fought against it as best I could. While brewing tea, I would sometimes deliberately leave the kettle on low heat so the water would boil slowly, giving me time to do hand exercises, moving small objects, sorting buttons, folding napkins. The doctor said it was important to constantly engage fine motor skills. I didn't know that Rebecca had been watching me all along. I will never forget that day. It was a quiet Tuesday, and David had left for a 3-day conference in Chicago. Rebecca wasn't supposed to be home from work until 6, and it was only 2 in the afternoon. I was sitting in the living room reading when I heard the front door open. Instinctively, I froze. Being alone with Rebecca was always tense. "Jeff, I can't take it anymore," I heard her voice. She was on the phone, clearly unaware that I was downstairs. "How much longer do I have to put up with that old woman? Can you imagine how much money we're spending to take care of her?" I held my breath, straining to hear. "No, David doesn't suspect a thing. He thinks all her pension goes to medication and food. Honestly, I don't care what he thinks. Let him keep paying me to put up with his mother." A chill ran down my spine. I had always suspected something like this, but to hear it said so bluntly, so coldly, it was deeply painful. "Yes, I brought up the nursing home again, but he's still resisting. Can you believe I found a great place? Only $250 a week. But David insists his mother is better off at home. What nonsense! If only he knew how sick I am of seeing her here every day." Rebecca laughed, and the sound was full of contempt. "No, convincing him will take time, but I'm working on it. By the way, when's your next business trip?" I already thought of a way to explain my absence to David. "I'll tell him I'm going to a sales seminar in Miami. Just 4 days, but enough time to relax on the beach. I need to squeeze it in before we send the old lady to the home. After that, there'll be less money." I didn't hear the rest. My legs gave way, and I sank to the floor, trying to process the shock. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I didn't try to stop them. So that's what she really thought of me? Old lady? Someone to get rid of? And my pension, being used for who knows what? A vacation with some Jeff? I had to get out of the living room before Rebecca found me. Slowly, I got to my feet, leaning heavily on my cane, and quietly moved toward the stairs. Each step was hard, not so much from physical weakness, but from the weight in my heart. I didn't hear what my son had said. What would he say when Rebecca brought up the nursing home again? Would he agree? In my room, I sank down onto the bed and finally allowed myself to cry. Really cry. Not quiet tears, but loud sobs that had been building up inside me for 3 years. I cried over my lost independence, over the trust I had placed in Rebecca, over how I had let her take my money and treat me like a burden. When the tears were gone, anger took their place. I didn't deserve to be treated this way. I had spent my life working as a teacher, raising both my own and other people's children, paying taxes, being an honest person, and now, in my twilight years, I had become the target of fraud and contempt. Within my own family, I called Eleanor. "I need your help," I said, wasting no time on greetings. "I just found out that Rebecca is using my pension for personal expenses and wants to put me in a nursing home." Eleanor listened to my disjointed story, then asked, "Which nursing home did she mention? Do you remember the name?" "She talked about it before. I think it was something like Sunny Harbor or something." "Sunny Valley?" Eleanor clarified. "Yes, that's it. Do you know it?" Eleanor was silent for a moment, and I heard her typing on a keyboard. "Martha, that's a very bad place. They have numerous violations reported by inspectors: insufficient care, unsanitary conditions, cases of sedatives given without a doctor's prescription. Last year, a patient even died there due to improperly administered medication. A chill went through me. And she wants to send me there? For $250 a week? Apparently, yes. It's the cheapest option in our county. Proper care costs at least twice as much. We were both silent for a moment, trying to process it all. What should I do, Eleanor? I finally asked. You need evidence, Martha. Proof that she's misusing your money. You have to find bank statements, checks, something concrete. Then you can talk to David. He won't believe me, I whispered. He loves her. He loves you too, Eleanor replied firmly. And if you have proof, he'll be forced to face the truth. After our conversation, I sat motionless for a long time, thinking over the situation. Eleanor was right. I needed evidence, but how could I get it? I rarely left my room and had no access to their financial documents. Still, I had to try. The next day, while David was at work and Rebecca had gone out shopping, I carefully made my way down to their bedroom. My hands were trembling, and my heart was pounding so hard that I had to stop every few steps just to catch my breath. I had never done anything like this. Going through someone else's belongings went against my principles. But this was about my life and my money. I started with the desk. The drawers were filled with ordinary items: pens, notebooks, utility bills, nothing suspicious. Then I looked in the closet. Some shelves held David's clothes in a messy heap, while others neatly displayed Rebecca's sweaters and blouses. I gently ran my hand under the stacks of clothing, and my fingers touched something solid: a shoebox. I pulled it out and opened the lid. Inside were bank statements, carefully organized by date. I began going through them, and my heart sank. There it was, the evidence. Every month, my pension was deposited into their account, and every month, Rebecca withdrew large sums in cash or transferred money to another account I had never heard of. I saw payments to a car dealership, $450 a month for a new Ford, the same one Rebecca had claimed she and David had financed together with joint savings. It turned out my money was part of that joint financing. But the most shocking discovery was at the bottom of the box. There was another mobile phone, not the one Rebecca used around David and me. I turned it on, and the screen lit up without asking for a password. Apparently, Rebecca felt so secure that she didn't even bother protecting it. The phone was full of messages between her and someone saved in the contacts as Michael, not Jeff, as I had heard the day before. Maybe it was a nickname, or maybe Rebecca had more than one lover. I started reading, and the blood froze in my veins. Miss you, baby. When's your hubby going away again? Soon. Next week he'll be in Phoenix for 3 days. I'll say I have an important presentation in San Diego. Can't wait to see you in that white bikini again. You looked so hot in the Bahamas. Do you remember our room with the ocean view? Cost a fortune, but it was worth every penny. The old lady still paying for your vacations? Ha ha ha, yeah. But we'll be sending her to the nursing home soon, and then I'll need a new source of income. Maybe you'll finally divorce your wife and we can live together. Michael was married. Rebecca was cheating on David with a married man, and together they laughed at me, calling me the old lady who pays for the vacations. I kept scrolling through the messages, reading about their upcoming trip to Mexico, how they plan to spend a week together at a 5-star all-inclusive resort. Oh, and it was scheduled for next month, another one of Rebecca's business trips. But the most horrifying part was in messages from 2 weeks ago. I've almost convinced David that his mother needs professional care, just a little more, and he'll agree to the nursing home. Are you sure he won't get suspicious when she's no longer around? He's so busy with work, he barely notices her now. I'll just say she's happy and well taken care of, and I'll take him to visit her once a month. And then, who knows, maybe she won't last long in a place like that. I couldn't breathe. Rebecca didn't just want to get rid of me, she practically wished me dead, and Michael. He supported her plans without hesitation. I took photos of the most incriminating messages with my old phone, the one David insisted I keep with me just in case. I also took pictures of a few documents. Then I carefully put the hidden phone back in the box, covered it with the bank statements, and returned the box to its place. I had barely made it out of the bedroom when I heard the front door open. Rebecca was back. I hurried to my room, my heart pounding. I had done it. I had the evidence. Now I had to decide what to do with it. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Thoughts swirled in my head like autumn leaves in the wind. I imagined showing David the photos of the messages, telling him about the conversation I had overheard. In my fantasies, he believed me right away, hugged me, and promised to protect me. But reality could be very different. What if he didn't believe me? What if Rebecca convinced him I made it all up, out of jealousy or signs of early dementia? What if my evidence didn't seem strong enough to him? I could end up in an even worse position than I was already in. In the morning, I heard David leave for work, but Rebecca stayed home, which was unusual. She usually left for the whole day as well. I decided to stay in my room to avoid seeing her. But around 11, there was a knock on my door. "Martha, I know you're awake. We need to talk." Rebecca's voice was tense. A chill ran down my spine. Had she suspected something? "Come in, Rebecca," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. She opened the door and walked in, holding a small box in her hands. "I brought you a gift," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "A new wall clock for your room. I noticed the old one is sometimes slow." The clock was beautiful, round in a wooden frame with a floral pattern. Rebecca hung it on the wall opposite my bed. "Now you'll always know the exact time," she said, and there was a strange undertone in her voice. I thanked her, puzzled by this sudden show of care. "I just wanted to make you happy, Martha." The real reason became clear 3 days later. David had gone on another business trip. Rebecca came into my room without knocking while I was doing my usual speech exercises. "You went through my things, Martha. Don't deny it." Her voice was icy. I felt the blood drain from my face. "I don't know what you're talking about," I muttered, but my voice trembled. Rebecca smirked. "Really? Then why did you go so pale?" She gave a smug grin and crossed her arms. "I know exactly how things are arranged on my shelves. Funny how that works, isn't it?" I had no choice but to accept my fate. I exhaled and turned to face her fully. For the first time, my son's wife struck me not just as cruel, but as a vile little girl. I couldn't tell whether it was her behavior that disgusted me more or the fact that I'd been caught. What now? "Now I offer you a deal. You stay quiet, and I stay quiet." Rebecca narrowed her eyes like a predator. "Judging by the footage from the camera in your room, it wouldn't be hard to suggest that you're mentally unstable. What if David starts thinking something unpleasant about you?" "You have no right to install cameras in the house without my consent," I said, trying to maintain my dignity. "In my house, I do whatever I want," Rebecca snapped. "And I have something else you'll find interesting. Take a look." She showed me her phone screen and scrubbed through an open video. On the screen, it was me, in my room. I was sitting on the bed and talking to myself, just as I did every day during my speech exercises. "Today is Friday. No, wait, Thursday. What's the date? The 20th, 21st? No, today is June 22nd. Taken out of context, I really did look confused, like I couldn't remember the date. But it was just a memory exercise, something my doctor had specifically recommended. "It's not what you think," I began, but Rebecca cut me off. "And this?" She showed another clip, this time of me standing by the table, talking to myself. The video didn't show that I was doing hand exercises, sorting buttons from smallest to largest. "Where did you get these videos?" I asked, the realization dawning on me. "You installed a camera in my room?" Rebecca smiled and pointed to the new wall clock. "Amazing what you can buy online, a clock with a built-in camera and microphone. It records whenever it detects motion or sound. Very convenient." I felt a surge of rage rise inside me. "You're invading my privacy. That's illegal." "Maybe," Rebecca shrugged, "but you know what else is illegal. Going through someone's personal things, stealing data from someone's phone. I saw you took pictures of my messages. Fortunately, you left traces. Those very chats were still open when I checked my phone." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low, threatening tone. "Listen to me carefully, Martha. I have plenty more videos like these. You talk to yourself often. Sometimes you forget to turn off the stove. One time, I filmed you not remembering what day it was. David doesn't know about your decline. If you tell him what you found, I'll show him all of this and convince him you have dementia. And your discoveries? Just the fantasies of an old, confused woman. Who's he going to believe? His sickly mother or his caring wife?" My mouth went dry. Rebecca had planned everything several steps ahead. She had deliberately provoked me into investigating, and all the while, she had been laying a trap. "What exactly do you want?" I asked at last. "Peace and quiet," Rebecca replied. "You don't tell David what you found, and I won't show him the real state you're in. Then, in a month or two, we'll all agree that you need professional care. Believe me, you'll be better off in Sunny Valley than here. That place with violations and unsanitary conditions, where patients die because of incorrect medication." The words escaped before I could think. Rebecca narrowed her eyes. "How do you— your friend Eleanor. Well, it doesn't matter. You still can't do anything. Even if that nursing home isn't perfect, you don't have a choice." "I can tell David the truth. Show him the messages I photographed. And I'll show him the videos of your odd behavior and explain that you're suffering from dementia and paranoia. That you invented the phone, made up this story out of jealousy over our relationship. Who do you think he'll believe?" My heart sank. She was right. David loved me, but could he really believe that the woman he'd been married to for 15 years was a cold, calculating manipulator? "Think about it, Martha," Rebecca said, heading for the door. "In the meantime, let's keep our little secret. It's better for everyone if we don't upset David, don't you think?" When she left, I sank onto the bed, feeling utterly drained. She had won. She was in control, and worst of all, she was watching me in my own room through that cursed clock. I looked at it with hatred. Take it down? Smash it? No, that would only give Rebecca more reason to say I was unstable. I had to think strategically. The first thing I did was call Eleanor. I whispered everything that had happened, retreating to the far corner of the room away from the clock and turning on the water in the bathroom to muffle the sound. "She can't just get away with this," Eleanor said when I finished. "We need to gather more evidence, not just about the financial abuse, but also about the surveillance. That's a serious legal violation." "But how? She controls everything I do." "Not everything," Eleanor said thoughtfully. "Listen, I have a plan." Eleanor's plan was simple, but risky. She bought me a small voice recorder, which I hid in the pocket of my robe. Now I could record my conversations with Rebecca. In addition, Eleanor helped me schedule an appointment with a neurologist. I needed an official medical evaluation of my cognitive health. "If the doctor confirms there are no signs of dementia, that'll be your insurance," she said. The week after the confrontation with Rebecca was one of the most stressful in my life. I pretended to be resigned and afraid of her. In reality, my determination to fight back was growing stronger every day. I was doing something I had never done in my life. I was spying in my own home. I placed the voice recorder in the living room, hidden under a couch cushion, and in the kitchen, behind a coffee can, places where Rebecca often spoke on the phone, thinking she was alone. I recorded every conversation between us, and whenever David called home, I listened very closely to what Rebecca told him. "Yes, honey, your mom's fine. A bit forgetful lately, but nothing serious." She was already laying the groundwork, making David doubt my mental health. Meanwhile, I underwent a full neurological exam with Dr. Steinberg, an elderly but very attentive specialist. He conducted a series of tests on memory, attention, speech, and logic. "Mrs. Clark," he said, reviewing the results, "for someone who suffered a stroke 3 years ago, you're in excellent shape. Your cognitive functions are intact. There are minor short-term memory issues, but they're well within the normal range for your age and condition. I see no signs of dementia." I nearly burst into tears from relief. I need an official report, doctor. In writing. He looked at me with curiosity, but didn't ask questions. Of course. I'll prepare all the necessary documentation. It'll be ready in 3 days. When I returned home, I felt more confident, but the game wasn't over yet. I continued collecting evidence, recording every word Rebecca said, and luck was on my side. On Friday evening, when David called to say he'd be staying late at the office, Rebecca decided to call her lover. Michael, can you believe it? The old lady found our messages. Yeah, I know. Unbelievable. But don't worry. I've got it under control. She's too scared to defy me. No, David doesn't know anything, and he never will. I convinced her that if she says a word, I'll declare she's losing her mind. Yep, I installed a camera in her room, can you imagine? Recorded her mumbling nonsense while doing those stupid exercises. One wrong move and I'll say I caught her slipping into dementia. David is so gullible, he'll believe whatever I say. I was standing behind the kitchen door, listening, and my recorder was running. There it was, a direct confession that she was manipulating both David and me. But the most revealing part came next. No, we're still going to Mexico as planned. I've already booked the hotel and bought the tickets. Yeah, I told David it's for a conference. Of course, all paid for with the old lady's pension. What else? Oh, and I found a way to boost our budget. David recently got a promotion and a bonus. He wanted to save it for the future, but I convinced him we needed new living room furniture. In reality, half the money is going toward our vacation. What? No, he doesn't check the accounts. He doesn't have time. I handle all the finances. I listened, and inside me, everything boiled with anger. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was deceiving David in every way. Financially, emotionally, in loyalty. Everything a relationship is built on. When Rebecca finished the call, I quietly returned to my room. Now I had a real trump card, a recording in which she confessed to all her schemes, but I still didn't know if David was ready to hear the truth. My doubts were resolved the next day. Saturday was supposed to be an ordinary day. David worked half days and planned to come home afterward. I was going to show him all the evidence I had gathered in the evening when we were alone. But fate had other plans. I was sitting in my room when I heard David return, earlier than usual. Their voices came from downstairs, in the living room. David and Rebecca were talking, and the tone was tense. I couldn't make out the words, but something in my gut told me something was wrong. Then their voices grew louder, and I clearly heard Rebecca say, "You're spending more on caring for your mother than we can afford. We're barely making ends meet. And in a care facility, she'd be looked after for just $250 a week." I froze. It was the same conversation I'd overheard before, but I hadn't heard David's response. Now he was about to speak. "How much money are we spending on caring for my mother?" David said slowly. His voice was eerily calm. "You mean her pension? The $1,200 a month you take, supposedly for medicine and special food?" Rebecca said something in return, but I couldn't make it out. "No, you listen to me," David continued, and now his voice was tight with barely contained anger. "We're not sending my mother anywhere. I know you've been taking her pension. I know about your lover and your vacation in the Bahamas. The private investigator I hired sent me the photos. I also found out that there's no car loan. We paid it off a year ago. If you're that unhappy with our family life, maybe it's time for you to leave and go live with your boyfriend. I've already spoken to a lawyer." Tears streamed down my face. David knew. He had known all along and had been gathering evidence, just like I had. I slowly stood up and walked to the stairs to hear more clearly. "You've lost your mind," Rebecca screamed. "What detective? What photos? This is your mother messing with your head. Haven't you noticed she's becoming more and more forgetful? She has dementia, David. Look at what I recorded." She must have been showing him the video from the camera in my room. "See? She talks to herself. She doesn't remember what day it is. She leaves the stove on. She needs professional care." There was a pause, and then David laughed, a bitter, hard laugh. "Rebecca, do you really think I'm that stupid? These videos prove nothing. My mother is doing speech and cognitive exercises. prescribed by a neurologist after her stroke. In fact, here's the medical report I got yesterday. I didn't know why Mom had gone to the doctor, but oh, what a happy coincidence. I was asked to pick up the results just before this lovely conversation with you. No signs of dementia. Her mental health is excellent for someone her age and with her medical history. I gasped. The report? But weren't they supposed to call me? But how? Rebecca stammered, and I could almost see her go pale. Dr. Steinberg is the father of one of my childhood friends, David replied calmly. When Mom made an appointment with him, he called me. We've suspected something was wrong for a while, but I didn't want to believe the woman I've loved for 15 years could do something like this. And now, pack your things and leave. Immediately. I heard Rebecca start to cry. David, please, you have to listen to me. I can explain everything. Explain what? How you stole my mother's pension? How you plan to send her to a horrible place where patients are treated like garbage? How you cheated on me with a married man? Michael Jeff Withers, father of 2 and loving husband, as loving as you apparently. Or how you installed hidden cameras to spy on your own mother-in-law? You know what, Rebecca? I'm almost grateful. You opened my eyes. I never thought someone could sink this low. I slowly walked down the stairs. They were standing in the living room, David, pale and resolute, and Rebecca, with mascara running down her face and trembling lips. Mom? David turned when he saw me. Did you hear all of that? I nodded, unable to speak. I'm so sorry, he said, walking over to hug me. I should have seen it sooner. I should have protected you. You believe her? Rebecca suddenly shrieked, glaring at me with hatred. That old woman tricked you. She made it all up out of jealousy. David didn't even turn around. I have photos of you kissing Michael Withers at a hotel in the Bahamas. I have bank statements from your secret accounts where you transferred Mom's pension. I have recordings of your calls with the travel agency about the Mexico trip. And, most interesting of all, I have a statement from Laura Withers' lawyer, your lover's wife. She hired a private investigator too, and now we're sharing information. So stop this performance and leave before I call the police. Rebecca froze, then her face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, David. Both of you will. She spun around and stormed out of the living room. We heard her go upstairs, and soon the sound of frantic packing filled the house. David turned to me, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have been watching out for you, but I turned a blind eye for far too long. How long have you known? I asked quietly. Not for sure until last week, but I'd been suspicious for about a year. Rebecca started acting strangely. I noticed you were becoming quieter, more withdrawn. Then I saw a bank statement she forgot to hide. There were cash withdrawals on days when she was supposedly at work. I decided to investigate and hired a private detective. And he photographed her with Michael? David nodded. In the Bahamas, where she went under the pretense of a business trip. After that, I started digging deeper. I found her secret account where she was transferring money. I discovered the car loan had been paid off a year ago, even though she kept saying we were still making payments. And yesterday, I got the final piece of confirmation. Laura Withers' lawyer reached out. Turns out Michael was also stealing money from his wife's accounts to pay for those romantic getaways. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to be absolutely certain before bringing it up, and I was afraid it might upset you or even trigger another episode. David gently squeezed my hand. I should have trusted you more. And Dr. Steinberg? Is he really your friend's father? David smiled. Yes, we went to school together, his son and I. I think you remember Harry. When you scheduled the appointment, Mr. Steinberg called me to check if everything was all right. I told him what I suspected, and he offered to help. He gave you a thorough examination and prepared the official report on your cognitive health. We heard the front door slam, followed by the sound of a car engine starting. Rebecca was gone. What now? I asked. Now we start over, David said, hugging me. Just you and me. I'll find a good caregiver to come while I'm at work. You'll have control of your pension again. And we'll talk more. Really talk. I've been working too much and paying too little attention to what was happening at home. That's going to change. In that moment, I felt the weight of 3 years of fear and humiliation lift from my shoulders. My son believed me. He protected me. And we were a family again. 6 months have passed since Rebecca disappeared from our lives. A lot has changed in that time. David kept his promise. He found a wonderful caregiver, Nancy, a woman a bit younger than me, with kind eyes and a great sense of humor. She comes 3 times a week, helps me with my exercises, and simply keeps me company. We've become friends. She lost her husband too and understands how important independence is in old age. She's been lucky to enjoy perfect health, which I can't say for myself. My pension belongs to me again. David helped me open a new account and set up automatic payments for my actual expenses. The rest I can spend as I wish. Recently, I started setting aside a small amount each month for a vacation. We're planning a trip to Florida next year. We rarely speak of Rebecca. David filed for divorce, and the process is moving forward. Sometimes I catch a shadow of pain in his eyes. 15 years of marriage isn't something you just forget. But he's growing stronger every day. As for me, I continue my exercises. My speech has improved, and my right hand is more obedient. I've even started knitting again, a hobby I gave up after the stroke. I'm currently working on a sweater for David for Christmas. Sometimes Nancy's daughter, Summer, stops by. She and David hit it off quickly. Turns out they have a lot in common. I've seen the way they sneak glances at each other. Who knows what the future holds? I've also started keeping a journal. I write down my thoughts, memories, dreams. It helps me organize my mind and remember the important moments in life. One day, I tried writing down the whole story with Rebecca, from beginning to end. It was painful, but it also healed me. I realized I wasn't to blame for what happened. I was the victim of manipulation, but I also found the strength to fight and not give up. When I finished writing that story, David read it and said, "Mom, you have to share this. So many older people go through the same thing and don't know what to do." At first, I refused. I felt it was too personal. But then I thought of other women and men my age who might be going through the same thing right now. Those who are afraid to speak up for fear of being labeled senile. Those who don't trust their own children, afraid of upsetting them. And I decided to tell my story. Not to seek pity or condemn Rebecca. She's already facing her consequences. But to remind others, age does not make us helpless or less worthy of respect. We all deserve dignity and safety, especially in our own homes. If you're reading this and find yourself in a similar situation, know that you're not alone. Find the courage to speak up. Look for allies, gather evidence, and never give up, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. Now, sitting in my cozy room with a cup of tea, I feel peace. A photo of Robert sits on my bedside table. He always used to tell me I was stronger than I thought. He was right. We are all stronger than we think. And those wall clocks with the hidden camera? David took them down the same day Rebecca left. Now, in their place, hangs a painting I made in a senior art class. It's a landscape, sunrise over the ocean, a new day, a new beginning. If you enjoyed the video, please support it with a like and a comment.